Hello, and welcome to our webinar on long-term resident permit in Spain. This webinar is part of the FEDER project, ProAdmin, Migratory Movement in Andalusia, Translation and Interpretation, Tools and Multilingual Digital Training for Social Inclusion. In particular, in this webinar, you will learn how to apply for a long-term resident permit in Spain. Here you are the table of contents. We are going to start with an explanation of the concept of long-term residence as opposed to stay or temporary residence. Afterwards, we will deal with the different types of long-term residence that you can apply for and the requirement you have to meet to apply for a long-term residence permit. We will explain how to submit your application, and finally, we will provide you with some links of interest regarding the long-term residence application in Andalusia. First of all, let's start with the explanation of the concept long-term residence in Spain. To begin with, it is important to differentiate between the concepts of residencia, residence, and estancia, stay. If you stay in Andalusia for no more than 90 days, you need to request for a permiso de estancia, stay permit. After that time, if you want to remain in the country, you must apply for a prórroga de estancia, stay extension, or a permiso de residencia temporal, temporary residence permit, a status that authorizes you to stay in Spain for more than 90 days and less than 5 years. See the guide on how to apply for a residence card. With this webinar, you will find the requirements you need to meet to get a long-term residence permit. This allows you to reside and work in Spain without the limitation of time, as Spaniards do. If you have temporarily resided in Spain for an uninterrupted period of 5 years and meet the regulatory conditions required by the law, definitely you will have the right to long-term residence. What types of long-term residence can you apply for? There are 6 of them. Firstly, you can apply for a long-term residence permit. This is to apply for authorization to reside and work in Spain without the limitation of time, as Spaniards do. Secondly, you can also apply for a long-term resident European Union permit. Apart from allowing you to reside and work in Spain indefinitely, it also gives you the possibility of obtaining authorization for residence in other member states of the European Union. Thirdly, you have the long-term residence in Spain of the long-term resident European Union in other member states of the European Union permit. This is a residence permit that you can obtain if you already have a European Union long-term residence permit granted in another member state of the European Union. In fourth place, you can submit an application to get long-term residence in Spain of the family member of the long-term European Union resident in another European Union member state. This is a residence permit that you can get if you are a family member of a foreign national who has a European Union long-term resident permit granted in another member state of the European Union. You can also recover your status of long-term resident in the following cases. First, when your permit has expired because you have been outside the territory of the European Union for 12 consecutive months. Second, when your permit has expired because you have got a European Union long-term residence permit in another member state. And third, when you return to Spain at the end of the period of your non-return commitment as long-term residence. And finally, you can request for the recovery of your long-term resident European Union in the following cases. When your permit has expired because you have been outside the territory of the European Union for 12 consecutive months. when your permit has expired because you have acquired a European long-term residence permit in another member state. And finally, when your permit has expired because you have been outside the Spanish territory for more than 6 years. Let's see what requirements you have to meet to get your long-term residence permit. The requirements you have to meet to get a long-term residence permit in Spain vary for each of the types of permits. Nevertheless, there are some general conditions that appear on the slide. Do you meet all of them? Congratulations! Then you can apply for it. And what's the application for? To request a long-term residence permit in Spain. As happens with the requirements, the documents you have to submit are different in each type of long-term residence permits. In general, you will have to provide copies of the documents and show the originals at the time you submit your application. In all cases, you must fill in the official application form EX11 and submit it in duplicate once you have completed and signed it. Now, let's move to the documents you have to show or submit with your EX11 form. Depending on the type of long-term residence you want to apply for, you will have to submit the following documents. In the first case, the long-term residence permit, you need to show a full copy of a valid passport, travel document, or registration card. If you are resident in Spain, a report issued by the regional authorities or the competent authorities or by the educational center proving the schooling of the minors in your care who are of compulsory school age. If you are not resident in Spain at the time of your application, a criminal record certificate issued by the authorities of your country or the country or countries in which you have resided for the last 5 years. Depending on your current status, you will have to provide extra documents. In the case of long-term residence for the European Union, you will have to submit the full copy of a valid passport, travel documents or registration card, supporting documentation of previous periods of residence as a European Union blue card holder in other member states, a proof of stable and regular resources which are sufficient to maintain yourself and, when appropriate, your family, and a proof of having a health insurance cover. For long-term residents in Spain of the family member of the long-term European Union resident in another European Union member state, you will have to submit documentation proving that you are a long-term European Union resident in another European country different from Spain, a full copy of your valid passport or travel documents, and finally, some documents depending on your living conditions. If you're not going to work, you must submit documents to prove that you have sufficient financial means to support yourself. That means 2,130 euros per month, and that you have public or private health insurance that covers all the risks normally insured for Spanish citizens. If you are going to work for a company, you must submit documentation identifying this company, your contract, and a proof that the company is solvent. If you are going to be a freelance, you must submit the documentation listed in the Portal de Inmigración, the immigration website of the Spanish government. If what you want is to apply for a long-term residence in Spain, and you are a relative of a long-term European Union resident in another European Union country, you will have to include documentation proving your residence in a previous European Union member state as a member of the family of the holder of a European long-term residence permit, a full copy of a valid passport or travel document, documents proving that you are family, documents proving that your family member has financial means to apply for family reunification or reunion, and a report issued by the competent bodies of the Spanish region of the City Council certifying that your home is adequate to meet the needs of your family. If you want to recover your long-term residence permit, you will have to provide a full copy of passport or travel document valid for at least 4 months, criminal record certificate or equivalent document if you are over the age of criminal responsibility, issued by the authorities of the country of origin or of the country of countries in which you have resided for the last 5 years, and a medical certificate. If you want to recover your long-term residence permit, European Union, you will have to provide a full copy of valid passport or travel document, a criminal record certificate or equivalent document if you are over the age of criminal responsibility, issued by the authorities of the country of origin or of the country or countries in which you have resided for the last 5 years, a proof of health insurance cover, and a proof of stable and regular resources which are sufficient to maintain yourself and, where appropriate, your family. Remember, when you submit documents from other countries, they must be translated into Spanish. Non-European Union foreign public documents must first be legalized by the Spanish Consular Office of your country or by the Spanish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation, unless the document has been apostilled by the competent authority of the issuing country according to the Hague Convention. Where you apply depends on where you live. If you are resident in Spain, you can submit your application in any public registry and address it to the Foreigners Office of the province where you reside. If you are not resident in Spain and you are in Spanish territory, you can submit your application at the Foreigners Office of the province where you domiciled. If you are not resident in Spain and you are not in Spanish territory, you can submit your application at the Spanish diplomatic mission or consular office in your residence area. And now, let's explain very briefly some details that you have to fill in the form EX11. You can check the meaning of every single term in the Spanish into English glossary included at the end of the long-term residence guide. First of all, datos del extranjero o extranjera, that means foreigners details. You will have to fill in with your name, surname, your personal address, nationality, your ID number in Spain, and let them know if you have a legal representative or not, and if you have dependent children or not. You have to indicate in this section of the form your representative details for the purposes of submitting this application and your details for notification purposes. La razón social is the company's name in case you have hired a company to deal with your application. In this list, you should mark the situation that corresponds to your application for long-term residence or long-term residence European Union. Again, in this list, you should mark the situation that corresponds to your application for long-term residence or long-term residence European Union. Please do not forget to include the date of your application and sign the form. It's very important. In this form, you can find some instructions that can help you to complete it. For example, what some abbreviation stands for, or how to apply for an electronic notification when you have a digital certificate. And finally, you will also have to provide the proof of payments of the application fee. For further information on application fees and deadlines for the resolution of your application, please visit the immigration website of the Spanish government. We are going to share with you some useful links to know much more about your long-term residence application. For example, Here you are contact information of all the aliens offices in Andalusia. And these are two useful links. In the Aliens Inquiries mailbox, you can ask your questions about your application and receive an online answer. In the second one, you can make an appointment so you can choose the schedule that suits you best to submit your application. And that's all for now. I hope this information has been useful for you and you can obtain your long-term resident permit as soon as possible. Good luck and see you in the next webinar.